My name is Mark Bookman, and I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Pennsylvania and a visiting researcher at the University of Tokyo. During my time as a Japan Foundation Doctoral Research Fellow, I focused on the last 150 years of that history, identifying how notions of accessibility have been shaped by local pressures, like impoverished World War II veterans and an aging population crisis, as well as global events like the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act and the 2020 Olympics. Consider how Helen Keller's excursions to Japan in the 1930s and 1940s shaped the nation's approaches to access, or how Japanese innovations like tactile pavement, those raised bumps you see on the sidewalk for blind people, shaped societies across the world today. I concluded that it was impossible to understand accessibility in Japan without investigating accessibility in other contexts, and that it was impossible to understand accessibility in other contexts without investigating Japan.
My name is Raja Adal, and I received the Japan Foundation Long-Term Research Fellowship. My research is on the material history of writing. I'm focusing on this very large archive, which is the Mitsui Miike Mine Archive, which has more than 30,000 documents, and I'm looking at the different instruments that are being used for writing, whether it's the pen, the pencil, the brush, the typewriter, the printing press. I looked at the transition, for example, between writing with a brush to writing with a pen to writing with a typewriter. I also look at various instruments of reproduction, right from the hectograph, the mimeograph. Today, as you know, writing is changing dramatically. We're using emails, we're using tweets, we're using posts, which are dramatically different from what we used only a few decades ago in terms of letters and memos. Another difference is that writing is deterritorialized. This was the case, for example, with fake news, where you have individuals whose job is to essentially participate in the US discourse that's taking place online and do so in an incendiary fashion. They can be positioned anywhere on Earth and participate in this conversation. It doesn't have to be humans, right? It can be bots who participate in these conversations. The third difference is that writing is being supplanted by other mediums, such as video. So I'm looking at this relationship between writing and technology historically, focusing in particular on the Wabun typewriter, the Japanese typewriter. And this is a huge typewriter that has more than 3,000 keys that are all in a tray. These Chinese character typewriters were not very popular elsewhere in East Asia. They're quite rare in China, they're quite rare in other parts of Asia. But in Japan, they sold approximately 2 million machines in the 20th century. So one question that I ask is, why was such an impractical machine so commercially successful? And I argue that the scripts that kind of survived into the modern world and the way that the modern script regime was shaped is related to multiple technologies of writing, among them the printing press and, of course, the typewriter. Now, there's a relationship between scripts, between empire, nationalism, religion, other factors, and also technology. So I look at this relationship and specifically chart the importance of these various factors and of technology in particular in the creation of the contemporary script regime.